How much should you be bumping up Kenneth Walker up your FFPC draft boards? What kind of a fantasy impact is Rico Dowdle going to have rushing the football for the Steelers? And where's the proper spot to draft Wan'Dale Robinson, the Tennessee Titan? Plus, 2025 FFPC Terminator Tournament $25,000 grand prize winner Danny Kennedy is going to join us to talk about Isaiah Likely, the Jets' new quarterback, and much more. We've got a great show for you. Ferrell Elliott is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than me, the lesser.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man, nobody ever told me what a man was.
Thank you, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all of you Balkaholics and Ferrelliacs. Welcome into the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, presented by MyFFPC.com. That's MyFFPC.com, the Fantasy Football Players Championship. My name is Eric Balkman. I am your slightly above average host. My co-host is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Mr. Ferrell Elliott. Coming up on tonight's show, we're going to make our call on Travis Etienne's numbers now that he is a New Orleans Saint, how DJ Moore is going to be affecting Dalton Kincaid's production over in Buffalo, and then the 2025 FFPC Terminator Tournament $25,000 grand prize winner Danny Kennedy is going to hop aboard to break down how Alec Pierce's role will change, if at all, what Travis Kelce has left in the tank, and so much more. If you want to connect with us on X, you can do so at HSFF or at Eric Balkman. I do apologize. It looks like StreamYard is having a problem streaming out to X tonight, so hopefully you can watch us on YouTube or Facebook because we are streaming live there right now. We are located on X at HSFF or at Eric Balkman. Like I said, Ferrell's Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship can be found at KFFSC.com. You can also post on our Facebook page at facebook.com/HSFF Hour and email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions for us, now is the time to send them in. We'll try to get to all the chat room questions, X posts, and emails in the fantasy feedback segment coming up later on in the show. What we don't get to on this show, we'll get into on Extra Reps coming up Friday night. Danny Kennedy, Ferrell Elliott, and I will do an abbreviated show that will air at 10 p.m. Friday night for everything we can't get to in this hour. Shout out to our audio engineer, my best friend Bryce, and of course our producer and mutual friend Rob. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot going on with the FFPC right now, and it starts with the FFPC Dynasty and Empire Dynasty Orphans we have available right now. It's pretty awesome, actually. We have some teams as little as $1. You can enter these dynasty leagues that start at $77 and go up to $5,000. Some have many of them have discounted entry fees for year one. So if you ever wanted to play fantasy football year round, FFPC Dynasty and Empire Dynasty is where it's at. The ADP I'll be citing tonight will be from the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. $125 to enter, $40,000 grand prize. And those drafts, along with the Superflex Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, which features a $35 entry fee and a $10,000 grand prize, those are going to close when the NFL draft starts. So you got about 6 weeks or so, roughly, before those, not even, probably a little bit less than 6 weeks, to get your teams in there and go for that Never Too Early grand prize. FFPC Big Gorilla once again features a $350 entry fee, a $1 million grand prize. The 7 Bananas promo and early Rampage tournament is live right now. So if you join the Big Gorilla, not only are you getting a $50 discount off your third team, but you're automatically entered into that early Rampage tournament as well. That's 2 tournaments for the price of 1. Check it out, myffpc.com. That's where you can register for the Baby Gorilla as well. If you've always wanted to play high-stakes fantasy football, but the entry point was not where you wanted it to be at, this $125 price point is perfect for you, and you can win $100,000 in the FFPC Baby Gorilla. Those and so much more found at myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live. We give you the update on the rest of the week, what we're doing for podcasts coming up later on in the show. Without further ado, let's bring him in, ladies and gentlemen, the co-host with the most, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football at Ferrell Elliott on the X, the boss, the head honcho over at KFFSC.com. He is Ferrell Elliott. Ferrell, happy Wednesday to you, sir.
Balky, it is so good to see you. And, buddy, take a deep breath. That was the most impressive. That was the most impressive opening. You did have a lot to cover, and you covered it very, very well. What's going on with that shirt? You look like a wizard.
The shirt, this is so I went to my Lent service for church today, so I didn't want to look like a derelict like I normally.
Those angels?
No, this is like it's like a cat.
Swordfish?
No, it's like a cat. I don't know if you get to see this. I'm gonna try to get it
Pirates?
close. It's like a cat with a golf club, and then there are golf balls on here.
Oh, okay.
So that's
very
the
spring-like for you.
That's yes, well,
that
pattern we're rocking with tonight. The pattern is spring-like, but the colors are not. It's sort of
and
like,
you're fearing the spear up top tonight.
absolutely. ACC tournament going on this week. Go Noles. I don't think they have much of a chance to advance, but
Really?
they call it March Madness for a reason, Ferrell. Anything can happen, and it usually does.
True.
We had some madness with free agency this week.
Did we ever?
This was crazy. I'm going to lead things off tonight. We'll go over to San Francisco, where the 49ers agreed to terms with Mike Evans, formerly of Tampa, 3-year contract worth up to just over $60 million. This, according to the reporting from Tom Pelissero from the NFL Network. $16 million is guaranteed, so the Niners could decide to cut bait with Evans after this season if they don't like what they see. Broken collarbone is what set him back in 2025. He did have a soft tissue injury, a hamstring injury that knocked him out 3 games as well. But if he is healthy, and that's a big if, knowing that he's going to San Francisco next to that substation that's just ruining professional football careers apparently out there. But double-digit touchdowns, I think so. And if you look at a lot of the underlying metrics, Ferrell, they were either on par with what he had done in previous years, or if they were smaller. We had such a small sample size to work with in 2025. I don't know if we can take a whole lot of the bad away from Evans. I take away the good because the good is what he's been doing for his entire career. So that was on par. It's the stuff where he was lacking, I think, is where the question mark comes in. And if we look at the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament right now, where his ADP is, I am seeing him at wide receiver 26 at the 605 after McLaurin and Waddle, before Odunze and Carnell Tate. I think that's too low. I think he needs to go higher. I think he's in for a bomb season this year. Ayuk got cut loose by San Francisco. Kittle's going to be starting hobbled. We don't know how much time he's going to miss. And Juwan Jennings is a free agent. I don't know if they bring him back. This is going to be awesome to pair him next to Ricky Pearsall this season. But which, by the way, and you could talk about Pearsall as well. I think these guys are great for each other, both good for Purdy as well.
You said everything there is to be said, and the last thing you said, I think, is the most important. Anyone that drafted Brock Purdy, and I think if we get away from the best ball and we talk about the Gorillas, anyone that had Purdy in a Gorilla has to be thrilled to see the announcement of Evans coming in. So what do we see him? We just see him be Mike Evans, but we see more of it. I think don't forget that the running back caught 1,000 yards out there last year. 1,000 yards out of the backfield. There's so many weapons. If they lose Kittle for momentarily, they just re-sign their tight end Tongas. And, that's a player that, from a fantasy perspective, I don't think you lose very much when Kittle goes down, if he goes down. And 2 tight end sets with Evans. It's an impressive situation. I like everything that the 49ers are doing in free agency, even with the signing of the kicker. Pinheiro got extended as well. Yeah. We're going to see Everyday Eddie back in a Niners uniform this year. The Never Too Early ADP on Evans, I said was the 605, which actually is accurate. But I do want to point out that he has gone as high, Ferrell, as the 501. And I think that's where he more settles in now that we know he is competing for targets with Ricky Pearsall, Christian McCaffrey, rather than Bucky Irving, and Emeka Egbuka, Cade Otton,
Jalen McMillan, and Chris Godwin. There's a lot going on there. Not as much going on over in San Francisco. One of the other big, and perhaps this was like the biggest signing of agency as far as fantasy football goes. Tom Pelissero again reporting that Kenneth Walker agreed to terms with Kansas City. He moves from coffee in Seattle to that delicious Kansas City barbecue. 3 years, $43 million is going to buy a lot of brisket. Jordan Schultz, NFL Insider, said the deal is worth up to $45 million, $29 million guaranteed. And I think Roto World pointed this out. Long history of minor injuries, but a longer history of explosive plays, which is the name of the game in the NFL. And think back to, and I'm not equating these two guys with each other, but how often do we see Barry Sanders, take a 3-yard loss, no gain, 2-yard loss, and then rip off a 75-yarder, right? And Kenneth Walker is not Barry Sanders, but that's sort of his game, right? He's going to not lull you to sleep, but he's going to take these losses and these short gains and then all of a sudden pop one off, which is what Kansas City needs right now. With Travis Kelce in the twilight of his career, Marquise Brown not expected back. They are going to be hopefully rolling with Patrick Mahomes week 1, but we don't know that as well. So they're going to be counting on Kenneth Walker early and often. Certainly he has not gotten a lot of third down work in his time in Seattle, but he showed in the postseason and down the stretch and in the Super Bowl, he's more than capable of catching the football. Sky's the limit for Kenneth Walker. Ferrell, as it stands right now, running back 15 at the 306 in the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. He's gone as high as 203, and I'm not saying he's a good pick in the early second round, but I am saying I do believe if you want Walker, especially right now until Kansas City, or if Kansas City adds another piece of that backfield, you are going to have to pay an early second round pick to get him. I don't think I'm willing to pay that price. But I know people in the FFPC, many of them smarter than me, are actually doing that right now. I don't know how you feel about Walker at that spot. Certainly, if I can get him at the mid-third, I'm in. But if I got to pay a round and a half earlier than that, I think I'm out.
A round and a half early, but if you are anywhere near the turn at the end of the second, you should be in the deep end with Kenneth Walker. I absolutely love what he brings to the team. I can't remember when they've had a back that could do this for this team. And he's not only going to do it for this year, he's going to do it for a long time. Wink, wink to the dynasty owners that might want to move him around a little bit or get some trade offers going. I really have always respected this player. I liked him better than some of the players that came out when he was drafted. I thought he was drafted too low. You can't ever hear me say in an FFPC draft that Kenneth Walker's drafted too high. If he is your guy, go get him. And wasn't he the MVP of Balky? We were in Louisville for the Super Bowl. Wasn't he the MVP of that game? Was he the MVP?
He was the MVP.
Yeah, so that's the big game. So he's going to be back there with another one. Mahomes an MVP once of a game.
Well, I think more than once. I think he was.
I'm just saying that's really impressive.
Kenneth Walker was a second-round pick back in 2022 in that draft. He was actually the second running back selected behind one Breece Hall, who was going to remain a New York Jet, at least until they trade him or for the foreseeable future. We have Danny Kennedy coming up in just 1 minute, waiting in the green room, noshing on the shrimp and crudité we have put out for him. The last thing I want to get to before we get to Danny, Travis Etienne, Ferrell. He goes from Jacksonville over to the Big Easy. He is now a New Orleans Saint, 4 years, $52 million on the contract, according to Ian Rappaport from the NFL Network. He is 27 years old. This is sort of where he's from, that area. I believe he's from New Orleans. Essentially, he's going to be the number one guy there. Devin Neal, Kendra Miller, no threat to him. This is Alvin Kamara. Sort of having squatters' rights on that number one running back role for New Orleans. And the Saints are basically saying, look, get the hell out of here. We have ETN now. Like, if you want to retire. We're not moving you anywhere else. And this is proof of it. ETN, 1,100 rushing yards last season, 7 rushing touchdowns, caught 36 passes as well for just under 300 yards, 6 touchdowns. He is versatile. He is a third down guy. He is a first and second down guy. He can do it all. I love ETN in New Orleans for an up-and-coming offense. A guy in Kellen Moore who saw what the possibilities are on an offense with Saquon Barkley and how you could focus in, or how you can really dial in the running game. It opens so much else up for you. And now he's going to have the opportunity to do that with Travis Etienne, fresh off this contract here. Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament has him at running back 18 at the 403, right behind. He's been between two Williams. Kyron right above him, Javonte right below him. I like the ADP for Etienne there, Ferrell. And I love the idea of starting off your draft with 3 straight receivers, or maybe 2 receivers and an elite tight end, and then getting Etienne as your top running back early in the 4th. Chef's kiss on that. Love the landing spot for Etienne. I think he's not only in for a good 2026, I think he's a buy-in dynasty as well.
And that reality, Balky, will happen only in your dreams, because he's going to move up so impressively in this. He's going to be good again for the quarterback. I like the young quarterback. You can forget about 30 catches. Let's talk about him in the mid-50s for catches, and that makes him very impressive as a fantasy player. And on that carpet there in New Orleans, he's going to break some of those. It's going to be a beautiful season. Again, this is a player that you can, based on his destination, his landing spot, you roll any kind of draft capital into him and make a good case for it. And I'm all in. I'm going to pat you on the back and say, good job.
Thank you, Farrell. Now it remains to be seen. I have been wrong once or twice before, but I feel pretty good.
I don't remember you being wrong.
I'll tell you a guy who was not wrong, made all the right moves down the stretch in his Terminator draft last season to win the whole thing. He's our guest right now. We're going to bring him on. 12-time league champion in his FFPC career. Ferrell, out of those 12 championships, 9 of them have come in the FFPC Terminator Tourney. He is a Terminator expert. He won the leagues a bunch of times, but he finally won the big one, the overall in the Terminator last season for that $25,000. He's back to take a look back on that with us tonight, how he won it, what was it like sweating it out, and then we'll take a look forward to 2026 as well. Please welcome onto the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, Mr. Danny Kennedy. Danny,
what's up, guys? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Excited to have you on, man. This is a lot of fun. The one non-fantasy question we'll get out of the way right away. When you're not crushing all these Terminator leagues, when you're not winning the overall in the Terminator, what are you doing for a living, sir?
So me and my wife, we got a lovely 2-year-old that we're just kind of raising and in that stage of our life. So it's going great. We both love her tons, and then just working a lot. So me, my dad, and my brother kind of own a construction company together. So we do underground construction here in Illinois. So that's my main job. That I tend to.
So, Illinois, what city, sir?
Chicago. Yeah, I live right in the city. So
sweet home Chicago.
Yeah, great. It's great. Big Bears fan. For sure. So that's my, that's my team for sure.
Danny, we were talking a little bit before the show. You were born into the Bears. Like you have Chicago Bear blood running through your veins with your grandfather, right?
I do. Yeah, my grandfather played for the Bears in the '60s. So his name was Mike Raybould, and he got to play with Dicka and Gale Sayers, and he was part of their '63 championship team. So it was real cool, real cool experience to hear. And unfortunately he passed away before I ever got to meet him, but it was just cool to hear the history and everything from from my mother, who talked about him very dearly. And so that's our whole family is big time Bears fans.
Did your mom ever, because I assume this was your mother's father, right?
Correct.
Right. Okay. So did your mom ever share a behind the scenes Bears story that your grandfather told her that you're like, wow, that is unbelievable?
So she told me that he was good buddies with Dicka. Him and Dicka were real good buddies, and they were always sharing stories. And it was great to meet. I got to meet Mike Dicka, with my mother, and she, he was just had very great things to say about him. Like knew him, just as they were playing together on the line. So he was an offensive guard. Dicka was the tight end. So they just, they were, they knew each other very well, and were teammates for a while there. So it was great to meet him and have him, say some great words about him.
That's
Played
awesome.
for 4 NFL teams other than the Bears included, also Vikings, Cardinals, and Lions. Left us at 33 years old. What a disappointment.
Yeah, unfortunately, I never get to meet. I didn't get to meet him, so unfortunately. But yeah, no, but he just. But yeah, got to play.
6'2", 239 pounds. That's what guards look like back then. That's what Gail Sayers and Piccolo were lining up behind. That's some stuff right there, buddy.
So I want to couch this. Ferrell, I made a mistake on the rundown because
you made a mistake, Buck. It's okay to make mistakes.
I said I've been wrong once or twice in my life. This was one of the times.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that Kyron Williams was on his Danny's Terminator team last year, and he wasn't. So I'm going to have you ask the Kyron Williams question in a little bit, but I want to find out the Terminator sweat here, Danny. You win 25 grand last year. And watching the one of the last games with family, right? And knowing that there's a lot on the line here. What was that like for you, especially a guy who's won Terminator leagues before, but never the grand prize? What was that like down the stretch watching that?
Yeah, it was just incredible. I mean, just obviously you got I figured I had kind of a slight chance, right, going into week 17, the last week. I mean, just never expected to to be able to finish on top. But we were down in Florida with my whole family, and just kind of, as a big Bears fan, just watching their Sunday night game against the 49ers. And, going into the day games went great for me. I had got a lot of points. I had it set up. So I'm not sure what spot I was in going into that game, but I knew I was in striking distance for sure. And then, I felt actually pretty good. I would get to number one. But the question is that you still got that Monday night game, so you want to, get as pad it up as much as you can. That was the game where it was a huge shootout. The Bears and 49ers put up, I don't know, it was 40 each, or it was a high 30. Yeah. It was a very high scoring game. So I had Caleb, McCaffrey, and then the Bears D. So first play of the game, pick 6 for the Bears D, and I'm just, that was just a great way to start that. Start that game. Let alone they put up some positive points while giving up like 40. So, it's rare to see that happen.
I love it that you're on first name basis with your quarterback. Now, Balky and Dan, if you could just, because I think that there are plenty, and Balky, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, everyone kind of knows what a Terminator is, but we don't necessarily know the nuances of the FFPC game as a Terminator. And would you say that it is the least played as far as number of players per year, Balky, of any of any of the FFPC contests, or am I wrong about that? Is it much more popular than I would imagine?
Yeah, I mean, no, it's not massive, but I think the super bracket is smaller than the Terminator. The Terminator, it's a $350 entry with a $25,000 grand prize. So obviously, it's not like thousands of teams like we'll have in the Big Gorilla and in the main event and what have you. But I'm trying to find out what we structured this as.
So there's a shot.
384 teams. 384.
So there's a shot that when people sign up and they see that Kennedy name and they say, "Damn, the Kennedy." Well, it's. How do they escape you, Dan? You're a terrific player in this format, and you'll play all the other FFPC formats across the board too.
I'll play some of them. I played the main event. I played like the Terminator, the tourney, the best ball tourney. I like the best balls a lot. So that just, when you do, like, I already got a couple season leagues, and when the main event's already tough enough. Once you get into so many season leagues, I mean, I just, you got to just put a lot of time to it. It's just a lot of time and A lot of
So
stuff,
you got a 2-year-old, and you're in the construction business. You're sitting in front of a ton of bricks. Yeah, a lot of time is not necessarily the thing that you have the most of. I can imagine that. Well,
correct. Yeah. So I can't, I would love to play more, but it's just not feasible. But I like those Terminator ones are just fun because like the draft's obviously one of the, best parts of just doing those, and then it's just very limited time you really need to put into a weekly, right? You just got to drop one person a week, and then, you pay attention as you normally would to your news and that stuff. But like, it's just very, the stuff with the best ball is great because it's fun to follow along all year, but like you're not required to do too much, during the week, management moves.
The Terminator, for the uninitiated, it's basically best ball. It's a best ball draft. But as Danny pointed out, you have to drop one player off your roster every single week until you basically have a full lineup at the end of the season. So it can be fun. It can be maddening, especially if you drop the wrong player at the wrong time. But you made all the right moves last year. So, Danny, congratulations to you on that. Fantastic. Good sweat with that Niners. Your Bears came up on the short end. But I'm a Packers fan. So anytime if my Packers come up short, but it helps me win a 5-figure grand prize in fantasy football, I let it slide. And I'm sure you.
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. It was good. It was great there. And like I said, I had a real good lead at Sunday night too. So I wouldn't, Monday wasn't too much of a sweat,
right.
Just because it was just worked out great. So, but yeah, no, absolutely. You take those 5-figure wins. Those usually take care of a loss.
Ferrell, fire away with Kyron Williams.
Well, what do you want me to ask about Kyron Williams? We've already determined he's not on the team. Hey, let me ask you something. It's Kyron Williams. Aren't you damn glad you didn't have him on your championship team? You could have got in the way. It's fantastic. I think there's much more interesting running backs to talk about. Balky, why don't you pull one out of the hat?
All right, I'll pull one out, and out of my proverbial hat here, I'm pulling out Rico Dowdle's name.
Ooh, yeah.
He has looked very good in Dallas. He has looked very good in Carolina, and now he's going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler this year. It's kind of weird because from a fantasy perspective, Danny, he's helped us out. He's looked good when he's been presented the opportunity to be a 3-down guy. If Chuba Hubbard was hurt or what have you, he excelled. You think about those 2 big back-to-back weeks he had last season. It was unbelievable. And yet these teams seem to be so willing to let him go into free agency. And now he's signing with Pittsburgh, ostensibly to play next to Jaylen Warren, to play behind Aaron Rodgers, we think. How big of a fantasy factor you think Dowdle is going to be in 2026 playing for the black and gold?
Yeah, so you gotta kind of think he's, they signed, I think it was $6 million a year or something. So they're gonna, absolutely when you sign a running back like that, you're putting him in as your, starter. I think certainly, Jaylen Warren will be there, and if it pans out, I think Dowdle will be like the first and second down guy, and then Warren will probably be their pass catching, change of pace guy. The biggest question to me is Aaron Rodgers coming back? You know what I mean? Because if not, we've seen Pittsburgh with their array of quarterbacks, not with Rodgers, and it just makes that offense non-existing. So that's to me is the biggest thing. So it's certainly worth the risk right now because you don't know. I would tend to agree with you. I think that I would lean Rodgers probably playing right now, but I mean you're talking probably a couple round swing if Rodgers is there versus Rodgers is not, because honestly I don't even know who their backup quarterback is right now. And
it's Will Howard. Which it's a little scary, Danny, because Mike McCarthy has talked Will Howard up he believes that
Will's not that bad a player.
Well, listen, I think, and I don't want to be presumptuous here, but if Rodgers says he is not coming back to Pittsburgh, I do believe that the Steelers are going to look long and hard about potentially being in the Kirk Cousins business, potentially being in the Kyler Murray business. I don't think that they go in with Will Howard playing at quarterback with Dowdle and Warren in the backfield, and then Pittman and Metcalf on the perimeter. I don't think that will happen, but I've been surprised before.
You just as a football fan, guys, not as a Steeler fan, or just not as the fact that we could get Leroy over here. We could get the real Leroy to come on the show, tell us what he thinks about Rodgers. The show would then go another 30 minutes, and we would be finished with. But and there would be a lot of expletives like you hear on the job at Chicago every day. But are you just a little tired of the Rodgers thing? You know, just it's kind of tiresome, and it leads in it. You know, now my next question to you is probably my favorite question of the year. Is we had a gentleman on from London. What was the name of our gentleman last week, Balky?
Paul Brenton.
Paul is out hanging out at the well, he was earlier. He's probably getting up for work now. But he was hanging out having a cider, and he was wondering last week if he was maybe just a little too soft on Alec Pierce. Now, Alec Pierce, with the new signing in Indianapolis, and is the bona fide number one receiver, with and Pittman now to Pittsburgh. I'll never get tired of saying that. That's a fantastic thing for both players, the one that moves and especially the one that stays. I really like Pierce. I drafted him at the 6-7 turn in one of the Gorillas. I see a player here that outscores the likes of George Pickens from last year. I see more yards, more touchdowns, 85-ish catches. Do you see the same thing for Alec Pierce?
Yeah, I mean, I think you almost kind of have to, right? I mean, who else are they going to be? You know, they're going to throw the ball to Warren, you know, but like what Downs is, you know, Pierce is better. You know, Pierce is better than Downs. Pierce certainly without Pittman though is going to be now. You know, teams are going to be eyeing him, right? So either they'll be their top cornerback or they'll at least probably be putting a game plan around Pierce to at least watch out for this guy. So I think his competition is certainly going to get harder because he's more teams are going to be well known of who he is, but just looking at the way of who they're going to throw the ball and the amount of targets this guy's going to get, I like Alec Pierce. I think he's going to end up a wide receiver too.
Yeah. So how high then, Balky, is Pierce going to go?
Yeah, so this is interesting that you guys bring this up. So Pierce right now, wide receiver 41 currently. He was going at the 905. He has been sneaking into the late 8th round since the Colts made him one of the richest men in the state of Indiana. And I would imagine he goes a little bit higher. I think this is interesting. And Danny, I'll throw this to you first. Just because he is getting all this money thrown at him, does that necessitate his role changing? Does that necessitate, okay, not only are you going to be a lid lifter for us, you're also going to be more of a possession guy, or at least take over some of that role with Pittman gone, because we're paying you this much more money. Do you see that happening? Or are they simply paying the market price for what Pierce has done for them the last couple of years, and we shouldn't necessarily expect a big spike in fantasy?
I think it's a combination of both, but I think if you're going to pay a player that much money, you have to assume he's your wide receiver one and he's your go-to guy. And because if you don't believe that, then you should never be paying him, that huge contract. So they have to believe in him and they have to give him, the opportunity. He's going to run into the problem is I don't just, Warren's good, but again, they, really don't have another guy on the opposite side to kind of take away anything from him. So it's going to be.
But buddies, they got a deep rookie class of wide receivers this year. I think it's a great time to make the move. And then you saw the deal that they did with Indiana Jones to keep him there. And you take the quarterback in with this. These guys are almost a bookend deal. I think one is attached to the other, and that's going to make it work.
And I will say too. Well, you're right, Ferrell, about the deep wide receiver class, and I fully expect Indianapolis to draft at least one receiver. I don't know how impactful this class will be in year one. And I don't think Indianapolis is going to be in the business of soaking some serious draft capital into any of the big three. They'd probably be looking at like the 7th receiver off the board at best. I don't know. We'll see what happens when that comes at the end of next month. But I do think it's wheels up for Alec Pierce. You mentioned, Danny, you pay that guy that kind of money, you're going to be expecting him to do wide receiver one things for your team. Speaking of big money, 4 years, $70 million. That's what Wan'Dale Robinson got from the Tennessee Titans. He moved to from the Big Apple to Broadway, as he'll be catching passes from Cam Ward. How close do you think, because it was such an outlier season for Robinson last year in New York, we saw his average depth of target go up, his yards per catch go up. We always thought that Wan'Dale Robinson was, he was the PPR scam. And then he showed us last year, no, I can do other things. I can get down the field and I can make big plays. He's now making some serious cash to make big plays for Tennessee. How close do you think he comes this season to replicating the numbers he put up last year?
Yeah, I like him. You got to think Tennessee, nobody's expecting anything of them, right? I mean, they're not, they're probably, I'm assuming they're projected to be one of the, top 5 bottom teams of just, so you're always going to assume that they're going to be trailing, they're going to be wanting to throw the ball, which, is, perfect when you got a PPR guy and you're just looking to get, those points. So I like Wan'Dale. I think, he's going to get a lot of targets there. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with Ridley right now. And there's a lot of rumors that he's, not going to get there or be around. But I think there's going to be I think they're going to try and get him the ball and, see what he can do. They got to let Cam Ward try and prove himself this year. Cause he's not, he hasn't shown anything yet of, being that guy. So they got to give him a chance to do that.
You are a tough evaluator, young man. You really. I can see why the Terminator crown goes to you. It's easy for you. I bet you wake up on Tuesday morning and you can't wait to terminate a guy. I'm loving it, man. It's great. You won't be probably drafting these guys as your number 1 tight end. But depth-wise, I like these guys. I like both players. When I first heard the news, I said one is going to hopefully emerge, but it could be a 50-50 split at the tight end position. I'm speaking of the New York Giants. Our beloved Stephen G. He would be here banging on the table for Theo Johnson. But you have to think that Isaiah Likely's move from the Ravens to the Giants mean that he is going to get a lion's share of the Giants passing game. Isaiah Likely in the game. What do you think there in New York?
Yeah, I mean, I'd absolutely be drafting Likely over Johnson. I just think the Harbaugh knows what he's capable of. He proved he's a good pass catcher. I mean, Baltimore always had a lot of weapons, right? Andrews and Flowers and and then just so they always had a couple major options. I mean, besides Malik Neighbors, he likely could go into that number 2 spot. So it's
do you guys see him as more of a slot receiver than an inline tight end? Do you think he plays that position?
I'd have to go and crunch the numbers on this, Ferrell, to find out where he lined up. But my recollection is I think he played inline enough with Baltimore.
Yeah.
He was already splitting snaps a lot of times with Mark Andrews. Obviously, sometimes they're on the field at the same time. But I don't view him as trying to think of a good, like an Oronde Gadsden type guy, where you're basically a slot receiver, you're tight end and name only, right? I don't view Likely as that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just think he's 6'4", 240 pounds. That doesn't scream inline tight end to me. And you just moved your slot guy, the smaller slot guy, down to Tennessee. You just let him go. So I'm curious about. I wonder if both these players could be on the field at the same time, which is kind of what we always thought would happen with Andrews. And likely, it never really did.
And the NFL, we've seen these teams move. Like Sean McVay, how many times did he line up with 3 tight ends on the field? We're seeing more and more teams utilize this 12 personnel, this 13 personnel. And I would imagine that the Giants are going to do that quite a bit this year. Now, as John McClain would say, the fly in the ointment, the monkey in the wrench here is what do the Giants do with that first pick at 5 in the NFL draft? would they take somebody like Carnell Tate there? Because if that happens, then all of a sudden we have to reevaluate not only, maybe not so much for best ball this year and Big Gorilla and KFFSC this year, but for dynasty purposes, we have to reevaluate of what this offense is going to be if Neighbors and Tate are the two guys outside. Likely is no longer the de facto number 2 option there, and he could be more of a tertiary guy, and a tertiary guy splitting snaps with Theo Johnson too.
I like that word a lot. Well,
tertiary?
Yeah.
There you go. I want to keep the tight end conversation going here. We could have asked this really, Danny, the last 3 years. I'm going to ask it again this year. We probably did ask it the last 3 years, but I'm going to ask it again this year. Travis Kelce is officially back with the Chiefs for one more year. I mentioned at the top of the show, we don't know if Mahomes will be back week 1, and even if he is, we don't know what kind of shape the knee is going to be in, the level of play from Mahomes. Kelce is a guy that they needed quite a bit last year, and it seemed like he just did not. He had tired legs. I mean, I'm not saying he said this. It's just speculating from what I saw. I don't know what he has left in the tank this year. I'm curious as to what you think he is going to give fantasy teams. And before I answer that, I'll tell you right now, in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, the highest he has gone over the last 3 days has been 804. He was going in the mid-10th on average. I do expect that average, that ADP to pop up a little bit now, Danny, that we got the word he's officially back. But if you are drafting him, he's tight end 17 right now. What are your expectations for Kelce in 2026?
Yeah, he's a gamble, right? I mean, what did he fin last year? I believe he was still a top 5 productive tight end.
Yes.
Receiving yards or fantasy
points. It did look pretty, but the stats told a different story.
76 catches, 851 yards, and 5 touchdowns, which sounds solid, but that was basically his worst number since his rookie season.
Yeah,
but it's still on the surface.
But it's still a top 5 tight end production, right?
Yes.
So could you expect something similar to that again? The biggest question is Mahomes, right? If he's not in week 1, is he in week 3? Is he in week 8? That just kind of determines a lot. I tend to believe that he's going to be ready by week 1. I just know Mahomes. He's such a fighter. I feel like he's going to be ready to go. They know that, Kelce's coming back. They know that they're, this very well could be Kelce's last year again. Their championship run, being great is, here they're at the end of their chances right now, with the team they got. Certainly they could, recirculate and regroup and be there and, absolutely. But the tight end position is just not deep this year. It's not. There's only. You got McBride and Bowers by far top 2. No questions, way ahead. And then you got the second year guys, right? Loveland and Warren are probably the next couple guys that are up there. After those 4, and to me, I think you just kind of see where you can get these guys because the last middle to back half are tight ends round 1. I could see any of those guys either finishing 5th or 15th, right? And you just have a huge area of difference right there. So I think it just a lot depends on how far he falls. I do think if you could get him as the back end 10th to 12th tight end off the board, I think you can absolutely take him. And then depending on what kind of tournaments or what kind of games you're playing, depends on a lot too, right? If you don't, if he's kind of average during the regular season, but you got a guy who could absolutely take your team all the way in the playoffs, it's different ways of thinking it, along that line. So to me, I see him as like a back end tight end 1, and just with certainly there's always some upside with him, right? But then obviously he's getting older, so there's always the risk too, to where if you draft him, you better make sure you got a decent, potential tight end too.
Which one do you like better, Kittle or Kelce at this point?
Oh, spicy.
Kittle or Kelce? Who do you like?
I will tell you this before you answer that, Danny. Kittle's actually going ahead of Kelsey by about a round and a half right now, tight end 13 versus tight end 17, which I think I'd feel a lot more comfortable drafting Kelsey than I would Kittle around. I just don't know what Kittle's going to do as far as like when he's going to get back on the field. We've had, and I can't remember who was, I was listening to a podcast or reading. So I've heard multiple people say like he could miss 10 games and it wouldn't be surprising at all. And I get this vision in my head of Travis Kelce being the beneficiary of some play action to Kenneth Walker this year, right? Like sucking those linebackers in, and then Kelce just catching these 9 and 10 yard dump offs from Patrick Mahomes, these little lasers down the seam, and then he just falls down, right? So he has like these 80 games or something like that, getting in a touchdown every 3 games or something. I don't think we'll ever see massive spike weeks from Kelce anymore, but Big Gorilla, KFFSC main event, anything where, you're setting a lineup, I feel a little bit more comfy, cozy with Kelce, knowing that I'm probably going to get production from him every single game.
Ooh, that alliteration, comfy, cozy with Kelce. Dan, we are hanging out with a true broadcast professional. And one of the things that bothered me last year about Kelce was I thought some of the routes that they had him, his designed routes, really took away from some of his strengths, especially in the red zone. We had a history of when you would see Mahomes creating basic longer plays by rolling out and escaping and throwing the ball on the run. And how many times do you remember Kelce breaking free in the end zone and making those catches? Yeah. That was, they had him going to the middle of the field and turning right at the goal line to get that. And the ball was in traffic. I didn't like anything about it at all. I think a different kind of package. Another thing I didn't like last year is when I heard that Geno Smith was giving the reins to the Ravens. And now I've drafted Garrett Wilson a couple drafts early on, and now Geno is headed to New York. And do we get a 2022 Geno or a 2024 Geno? Can he summon up those numbers of 30 touchdowns and damn near 30 interceptions? Well, probably not, maybe 20. But is Geno going to help? Is he going to be that stopgap receiver until the Jets can find a quarterback? I mean, and I'm rooting for him. I love the guy. But, how is it going to be different from last year, Dan?
I don't think so. I mean,
it can't be any worse, Dan. It can't be any worse.
I mean, you're right. It can't be any worse.
Garrett Wilson's going to say, trade me to Jacksonville where I can be with Jacoby Myers. Is that going to happen in midseason?
Yeah, unfortunately, the Jets, they know Geno Smith's not their long-term answer. He's trying to fill in. I mean, I think everybody knows that that's another team that's in the rebuilding process. They need to, ultimately those guys need to find a quarterback here, whether it's next draft or, this or any, at any time they need to find a quarterback who's going to turn that franchise around. Right. Cause that's what, that's ultimately what they need. Geno could be, he might be okay, but I mean, I can't really, me personally, I'm staying away from most Jets. Maybe Breece Hall if he falls. You could see about him. But I think the Jets are kind of just at just having they got a lot of dysfunction over there, and I just I see a very limited production out of that offense.
Now the 400-pound gorillas bring this up. Geno is pretty bad, but is he the best quarterback Garrett Wilson has had? Now. He's had Justin Fields. He's had Aaron Rodgers. I'm trying to think of the other Jets quarterbacks that he had that Wilson has had. And the fact that I can't think of them probably tells you all you need to know about that. This question for you, Danny. Simple yes or no. And I know it's not a simple yes or no because every draft is different. I'm going to give you a Jets player. I'm going to give you his ADP. You tell me just first thing that comes to your mind. Are you in or out on that person at that spot? Say yes or no. Breece Hall, 306.
Out.
Garrett Wilson, 402.
Out.
And the last one, Mason Taylor, 1501.
I would probably say out too, but that the last one, that tight end could be. It just sometimes you always need to get a couple backups, but I just I don't. If any of them, honestly, he might be the one just because it's so far low ADP. Where I just think those third and fourth round players, I think, besides when Wilson had Aaron Rodgers, he hasn't been a good draft pick in the fantasy, in the world. When he had Aaron Rodgers, yeah, he was good, and Geno Smith's not Aaron Rodgers. I mean, we all know that.
I was waiting for you to say, Balky, who in the hell is Mason Taylor? He would be terminated. He would be an early terminate for me.
Mason Taylor, I mean, for what it's worth, the bloodlines are there. The son of Jason Taylor, right?
He should be playing defense.
Maybe. His uncle played defense too. Who was the linebacker, guys? Help me out. Zach Thomas. He's Zach Thomas's nephew too, I believe.
God, as a player.
So you have the bloodlines there. Had somewhat of a draft pedigree. Second-year player. Tight end 26th, 15th round. I'm with you, Danny. He's not a target for me at all there, but I would take some chances at that spot just to see what happens there. Hall and Wilson gets a little bit more dicey with that kind of draft capital, but I think I'm with you on Taylor. Okay, let's do a couple of emails here that came in for you, Danny, and the first one is from Charlie in Atlanta. Okay, here we go. He writes, "Hi, Danny. Which quarterback is better for Justin Jefferson this season, Kyler Murray or J.J. McCarthy?" Congrats on the Terminator. That is Charlie in Atlanta. Thank you for the email, Charlie. Kyler Murray or J.J. McCarthy? Let's say you own Justin Jefferson. Who do you want throwing the ball to him this year? And maybe it's not one of those quarterbacks too, Danny.
Yeah, I mean, I think just going up the question, I think you got to say Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray. I just don't. J.J. McCarthy just showed, he was young, you know what I mean? He's, needs some time to learn, but he just did not show anything last year. And you could see that, obviously Justin Jefferson was frustrated with them, but Kevin O'Connell, you could tell, was very frustrated with them. And, I'm not sure Kevin O'Connell trusts him right now.
No.
Going into a, what was he, a 10th or 11th pick or 12th or something like that. He was, a top half of first round pick. You should be expected to start year two, in that with that. And I just don't think that's the case. And, Kyler Murray can, he's proven he can be productive when healthy. I think you absolutely got to go Kyler Murray on that one.
I will say this, and I feel like I'm becoming a J.J. McCarthy apologist, but I will say this. Was not asked to do a lot at Michigan because of how dominant that defense and ground game was. He did not have a lot of starts in college. So he doesn't really have that experience yet. Tore up his knee, missed his whole rookie season. Last year was really his first year. And I'm not willing to say he's a bust yet. Now, I say that it doesn't really matter because the Vikings have made a decision. They have fired their GM. They're not hiring a new GM till after the draft. And this current front office administration is looking at bringing in outside help, including being the reported favorites to land Kyler Murray. So as much as I think McCarthy is still going to be a hit at some point in this league, it's getting tougher and tougher to believe in him based on the situation that's developing around him. Quite frankly, he might be one of these guys that becomes like a Sam Darnold, right? Where he goes on to another team and then finds success where it's just not going to happen for him in Minnesota. Not willing to write him off yet, but I'm with you. If I have Jefferson, I want Murray throwing too.
Yeah, I think you absolutely said it. You just he needs just a couple of years, just back up and learning from somebody, and maybe then that can change it around. Because like I said, he had very limited experience. The injury and like I said, Michigan, he wasn't the tall task. So you're right, he could. Absolutely, McCarthy could turn out to be a good quarterback. It's just I'm just not convinced it's going to be next year.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Mark in Roxborough, North Carolina has the last email here for you on this show. Hey, Danny, what's DJ Moore's impact going to be on Dalton Kincaid, if any at all? That is Mark in Roxborough, North Carolina. I know there's a lot of people that were on Kincaid this season, smart people, smart high-stakes people that are in and believing in Dalton Kincaid's 2026 season. it's going to be a winner. However, a lot of that came before the DJ Moore trade. What do you think the impact, quite frankly, is going to be on both of these players? Do they help each other? The fact that both of them are threats on the field now is going to make both their stats go up? Or is this going to be a negative impact for Dalton Kincaid now that Moore is going to be in Orchard Park?
I'd say if anything, it's a minor hit, but I don't think it's a hit to Kincaid or that I'm, dropping him that far. You know what I mean? And not drafting him, right? I would still, could draft Dalton Kincaid, as my tight end one and still be, as a back end guy or, mid back end guy and, kind of accept that production. I do like DJ Moore a lot this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's with Josh Allen, he's their no doubt their number one guy. I think, I like DJ Moore a lot. I think he's going to be in for a big year. And then, and certainly that could help Kincaid, but, those guys with Allen and Cook, they, anytime down the red zone, they run the ball so much. It's just, and now DJ Moore's their one pick. It just, it's going to be kind of hard to, expect all those guys to produce where you want them.
And Kincaid, news out of Buffalo today is a 3-year contract for Dawson Knox. And Dawson Knox, 30 catches a year, largely 4 or 5 touchdowns often. It has to have an effect on the Kincaid. And when this trade went down, bringing the star receiver more into Buffalo, I offered a guy that has Josh Allen and has Moore. I offered him Shakir, thinking that this would complete his triumphant of Buffalo wide receivers. And to get in that situation, and I thought, well, I'm giving him some value that he would like. And he rejected the trade and came back to me and said, Shakir is valueless now in this offense. And I know, well, it's just is to be determined. But I don't think that's right. I think Shakir benefits from this too, and that somewhat affects Kincaid. But you're right; they do love to run the ball, and they've got lots of players up there. There's just not that many offensive snaps to make that work. But your new receiver in Buffalo, I think you can count on him.
Ferrell, I am fresh out of emails. So
no way. There's all kinds of people.
I'm gonna say. Okay, I shouldn't say I'm fresh out of emails.
All kinds of emails.
I'm gonna save the rest of the emails I have for the extra rep show. But you can have one final crack at picking the big brain of Danny Kennedy tonight.
Danny Kennedy, the Terminator. This is a question just made for you because it's basically, who do you like and who do you not like? Well, I guess what I'm asking is there a player that will never have even the indignity of being terminated from your team? And then who's somebody you're going to lean into? And I think Balky has already teased it. It's Kyron Williams, isn't it? It's Williams. That's who you're got, right? This year is Williams.
I actually like somebody from the Rams, though. I like Matthew Stafford a lot.
Yeah.
I think I don't think he's slowing down at all. And right, to get him as, I think he's like 11th, 12th ADP right now as a quarterback. He was he won the MVP, right? So he's, to get a quarterback like that in the back who can put up numbers any given day, like, with Allen, it just, and you're saving, 7-8 rounds of drafting him. I think that's just a huge advantage, to do that. I believe last playoffs, Stafford outscored Allen in the three playoff weeks, 15, 16, 17. So you can get that kind of stuff from quarterbacks, where, the guys in the low rounds could easily, outplay where it's just a lot rarer, barring injury for, running backs or top end receivers or stuff like that. So he's a guy I really like. And then, certainly Kyron, anybody in that Rams offense, I think, they're going all in again. So all those guys are, I think they're going to, be above and beyond their value. I think they're all great picks. So go ahead.
Yeah. So Stafford's the guy you like. He's going to be on a bunch of your teams. This next guy, I would imagine, is not going to be on any of your teams this year.
Yeah. I'm just as far as the tight ends, with with all that, I'm just, like I said, I'm not a Kittle guy. I mean, like I said, we talked about Kelsey, about potentially drafting him if the value's right. I just tend to think he's gonna, as Travis Kelsey, he's just usually gonna go there, more than others, like Kincaid. A lot of these other tight ends, that we really just don't, aren't seeing the value for. But I'm my biggest, person of not drafting just because of value. I just honestly, and a lot of people are going to be against it, guys like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. I just don't like just don't like drafting them at their ADPs,
Mm-hmm.
I just tend to think it's hard. It's hard for those quarterbacks to, I think it's just hard to get your, that proper value out of a third round out of a quarterback. When you draft anything, you need to, he's got to hit real big.
You think those rushing numbers of Lamar are a thing of the past? They were down last year. You think he'll continue to be down in rushing yardage? Because that's what really made him special in fantasy.
I do, yeah. No, I think his days of rushing for tons of yards are over. Obviously it helps they got Derrick Henry, so he doesn't have to lean too much. He probably doesn't have to feel the pressure to lean on too much when you got that guy, which is certainly going to benefit him. But I just those are a couple of guys who obviously they're MVP candidate players, no question wrong, but just in the fantasy world, it's just hard for me to, pass up on a guy who could be a wide receiver 1 or a running back 1, versus a quarterback. You can, get a guy like in the back end rounds to put up the same points.
Regarding, and this is the last point I'll make, regarding the whole drafting a quarterback early, the Dow of Baker boy, Joe Delzanero, longtime FFPC player, he always said, I can't take a quarterback early because I need that extra player. He needs that extra running back or the receiver, the tight end that he takes there instead of that quarterback. And I've always equated it to, those things, guys, it's like they do them at like car dealerships or parties or whatever, where they put you in this big glass tube and then they blow air in there and there's people flying all over I feel like that's me in a fantasy draft. And the girls are like, oh, I need a running back, I need a receiver, I need to grab all these players, right? And the quarterbacks are sort of the coins that are at the bottom that I just don't have any use for because I'm too busy trying to snatch all these running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. And so I'm with you. Like, I understand Josh Allen is probably going to be awesome again this year. Lamar can make the same case for him, right? I feel like I'm too busy scrambling at these other positions of need where I can play multiple at them, especially in FFPC where you can play multiple tight ends too. It's sort of an afterthought for me. Now, sometimes it's been to my own detriment, and sometimes I've had really good teams who are drafting a quarterback early, but by and large, it just feels yucky to me. I need to be grabbing those bills rather than the quarters.
And I love that trying to snatch visual that you just did there.
I've been in one of those before.
It was impressive. Yeah, I love it.
More like a cat, like a cat playing with a toy, something like that. Okay, anyway.
There's things going on in that party that doesn't even, well, never mind.
All right. I'm going to put a pin in this show tonight. Danny Kennedy, the $25,000 winner of the FFPC Terminator last year. Congratulations. I should ask you too, Danny, do you have any plans for all that big cash windfall that you got? Do you have any plans for it?
Took my wife on a vacation and our daughter. So that was, that was our fun spending,
nice.
Over the winter. Otherwise, just, saving it and,
trying to go back to back.
Looking forward to trying to win it again next year.
This was a pleasure having you on. I want to pick your brain a little bit more. You're going to join us for Extra Reps, a show that we're going to record now that will air on Friday. But I want to thank you personally right now. We'll talk to you in a little bit. Danny, thank you so much for making us a part of your Wednesday evening.
Awesome. Yeah. No, thank you guys.
Absolutely. That is Danny Kennedy as we wrap things up on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Great stuff from him, Ferrell. We'll get more stuff from him on Extra Reps. We're going to be talking about Colson Loveland, Malik Willis, Romeo Dobbs, and so much more. What I've learned a lot so far. This has been...
Yeah, we're going to find a tight end he likes, especially if you keep bringing up those things. And, all the guys that are in the chat need to join us. Oh, Johnny Lincoln's coming in strong tonight,
Yeah.
He's actually talking about some tight end movement. And I've got a couple questions for you.
Oh, perfect. Well, that will be on Extra Reps coming up. For anybody who's looking to play in the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship, Draft Masters Main Event, Sweet 16, the $100 entry fee for that level, all available. KFFSC.com, 2-hour drafts, 6-hour drafts. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm enjoying it so far, and I look forward to competing against a lot of the viewers and listeners too. Ferrell, KFFSC.com is where to go.
Thank you, Bob.
That is Ferrell Elliott, ladies and gentlemen, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. As we put a bow on tonight's show, I want to thank Danny Kennedy, Ferrell Elliott, the FFPC, Rob Bryce, and of course, each and every one of you. We will be back next Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern time for another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football. We're getting closer and closer to the NFL draft. Going to be a fun jaunt as we motor in to find out where these rookies are going to be ending up. And we got a lot of free agents out there still. Dallas Goedert, where's he going to sign? Some other tight ends floating around out there as well. Insider access tomorrow, 7 p.m. until 9 p.m. Ryan Goodman from Rotoballer is going to join me to give his input on the fallout from free agency, as well as some more signings that happened today, as well as ones that are going to be happening tomorrow. Don't forget about FFPC Dynasty and Empire Orphans for as little as $1 right now at myffpc.com. While you're there, the Superflex Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament featuring a $10,000 and $40,000 grand prize, respectively. The Big Gorilla $1 million grand prize. Don't forget about that 7 Bananas promo, as well as the early Rampage tournament. Both of those, you get the details on that, myffpc.com. Two tournaments for the price of one entry fee. And of course, the Baby Gorilla. You always want to play high stakes fantasy football? Now's your chance. $125 gets you a chance to win a $100,000 grand prize. That's myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live, which will be 7 o'clock tomorrow night on Insider Access with myself and Ryan Goodman. As our friend Vince Staffolino reminds us, you are officially over the hump now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind you, too, in addition to Insider Access at 7 o'clock on Thursday night, 10 p.m. Friday will be Extra Reps, the spinoff show of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Going to be a lot of fun. Ferrell Elliott, myself, and Danny Kennedy will record it now. It will air at 10 p.m. Eastern time on Friday, so you get FFPC content Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday night. You're welcome, or I'm sorry, depending upon how you feel about the show. We just appreciate you listening and watching. Talk with you again next.